Hello, I'm Lauren with Lauren Elizabeth Animal Art, and I'm a full-time animal artist, mother, color fanatic, and to help me manage my stress this year, I've been creating art every day for 10 minutes a day, and I invite you to join me. Today we'll be relaxing with this adorable baby Jaguar tutorial in real time, and this is part 1. Part 2 will come next week. Now I want to say a big thank you to everyone for your support. Last week I opened my new print shop. It's my spring collection of past work, but most of my new artwork for my 365 days of color. And lastly, I want to announce this month's giveaway winner, who is Patty Miller. Congratulations, girl. You win 1 month free in my online animal art masterclass. All right, guys, let's get started. Alright, so you can access this traceable individually in a link below, or if you'd like to access all my old and upcoming YouTube channel traceables, reference photos, and material lists, along with its corresponding tutorial, you can find all that in one place in my Dachshund tier, also linked down below. Now for today's verse, it comes from Psalms 34:5. Those who look to him are radiant. Their faces are never covered with shame. Now, when I was really battling addiction, which is now about 7 years ago, I remember hearing for the first time Rick Warren, one of my favorite pastors, say, "When we look to the world, we become distressed. When we look to others, we become downcast. When we look within, we become depressed. But when we look to the Lord, we find rest." When you're in the deep depths of addiction, you want to find relief at all costs. You are just desperate to find some help in the darkness. And that really is how I felt. I felt depressed when I looked within myself to find that strength. I felt overwhelmed when I looked to the world to find that hope. And I felt very disappointed when I looked to others because people let us down. But something in my heart knew that the Lord had me in that darkness to find my faith and to put my hope in Jesus. And in that pain, in all that suffering, I did turn to the Lord. I just kept looking to him. I just kept reading the word. I just kept seeking him through every struggle that I went through. And little bit by little bit, the Lord just realigned my path. I just found blessings along the way. I found some awesome people that really helped me in my recovery. I came to eventually meet my husband, Adam. My body was able to heal. I had children. And now I'm able to do what I've always dreamed of doing, becoming an artist. And I couldn't have done that in my own strength. How could I have done that from the mess that I came from? That is only because of the Lord. He brought true treasures out of the darkness that I caused. And I truly believe he can do the same in your life, my friend. Now we're going to start working on our background using the Arteza size 11 flat brush. All these brushes are by Arteza. And we're going to make the left side more pink, the middle purple, and the far right more dark purple and blue. Okay, so I'm going to be using my Fluorescent Pink. This is by Liquid-X Basics. This is the only Liquid-X Basics that I have here. All the rest are by Master's Touch. And I'm going to start using this pink with white. Now make sure you mix up a good amount. We're going to work all the way up the left side and behind the cat's left ear. So behind that left ear, then we'll start pulling in, blending in some of our Prisma Violet. Now you don't have to use Prisma Violet. If you don't have it, you can just use regular violet. And I want to work wet into wet here. So we want to work our background relatively fast. We don't have to go Speedy Gonzalez. We just have to work fast enough so that we can blend straight on our canvas while it's wet. Now here I'm going to pull in more Fluorescent Pink so that it starts to get a little darker. I want it to progress from a light pink, a little bit darker pink, purple, then to a blue. I'm just smoothing out some of the brush strokes. I'm not positioning my brush vertically where it really pulls off that paint from my canvas. It actually helps if I pull it along with that brush at an angle and the bristles are just lightly touching the canvas. Here's where I'm going to pull in Prisma Violet and a little bit more pink and some white, getting a little bit darker as we move to the right, and I'll blend that straight in to my pink right on my canvas. Once we get to around the top of that right ear, I'll pull in yet again more Prisma Violet into our paint mixture, making it a deeper purple. I'm also not trying to make sure the paint blends perfectly. I'm actually intentionally leaving brush strokes over top some of that light pink. I just like the variety, I guess, of textures in my painting. It's more smooth on the left and a little bit more textured on the right, but that's personal preference. You can do what you think looks right, but just remember to take it to your sides of your canvas as well. So we won't have a whole lot of purple on our canvas. Right here, I'm going to pull in blue into our paint mixture along with some more Prisma Violet, and I'm going to be pulling that all the way down to the bottom right. Alright, so now I'm going to go around my background just to touch up some areas that I like. For instance, here I actually want it more pink. I accidentally pulled in a few blues and purples in there, so I fix it up. And then I also want to keep the bottom left a more whitish pink, so that as we move from the left to right, it's just this light to a darker pink to a purple and to a deep blue. So that's my goal here, as well as keeping some brush strokes just to make it interesting. Now, this scripture card on the table is a part of my 8-pack scripture art cards. One side has my original artwork and the other side has its corresponding verse. They're super thick and glossy and they come with a stand. It's the spring edition, which I have on pre-order in my brand new print shop. Now I'm going to get rid of a reference photo for just a second because I'd like you to see the dark brown that I mix up. I'm using my size 1 Arteza round brush and I'm mixing burnt sienna with black. We use these two colors a whole lot for the spots and the rosettes, and so I want this to be a really dark brown, but lots of burnt sienna and black, enough so we can cover all the spots and all those little misshaped fruit loops that you see at the bottom. So that's what we'll be doing. Now we're going to start on the bottom middle of the cat's face, but as we work towards the top, we're going to add in more burnt sienna, less black. Now I want to identify the light source. It's coming from the top right, I would say, because we're getting a strong shadow on the left side of the neck and along that snout. So little tip here, whenever you're painting wild cats, you still want to actually lighten up the markings that are facing the light source. So that could just mean adding in some raw sienna, or in our case some burnt sienna. You don't really need to add any whites most of the time because you still want to keep them dark, but I don't recommend using just black for all the markings. And take your time here. This is really satisfying. It's really therapeutic to just do one little spot or rosette at a time. Oops, and I almost forgot. This color will also use to fill in the dark areas around the mouth. So the slightly open part of the mouth will fill in with this color, and the side of it where the gums are. All right, so here's where I'm going to pull in more burnt sienna, and I'll be using less black in this mixture because we want to get those light markings on the top of the head. All right, so next I'm just going to go in with black to fill in the nostrils and outline the nose. I won't add any other color, just black, and I'll still be using my size 1 round brush. Next, we'll move to that right eye. I'm going to work on one eye at a time for the dark outline around each eye. That's definitely something we see in cats. And I'm just going to outline the inner part of the eye first, very carefully with black. Now what I'm doing is I'm outlining the entire eye, but also the area around the iris, the colored part. So we're going to have a little white on the right side of the right eye. Now, if you look at the reference photo, the eyes are pretty dark. They actually can barely tell the color of the eye. So I'm going to pull the dark shadow on the top of the right eye down and then also fill in the pupil. I'm almost going to bring that black down to the pupil, but not quite. And I want to round it so it's just this nice round eyeball. All right, so this next part, you really want to be careful what lines you're outlining because I almost messed it up here. First, I'm going to outline the line above the eye, and then below the eye, I'm going to start from the inside left of that eye on the bottom, bring it all the way up to the very bottom of the eye. I'm going to ignore that line that we see there, that sketch line, or just ignore that entirely. Next, I'm going to mix up a dark gray using white and black. I want this dark, but still light enough that it shows up over top that black. So inside this open area around the eye, I'm going to fill it in with this dark gray. I'm also going to pull it down along those spots. So now I'm going to pull it into those spots. I'm going to pull in actually more black to disguise it a little bit better into those spots. But you can see that I'm just dabbing my brush so that it's this dark shadow, but also almost a marking along the eye. And I'll also pull this along the spots right below the eye as well. Now where this right eye comes to a point on the far right, I'm going to make it a little tiny black triangle, just thicken up that point with my black. All right, great. So let's let that right eye dry before we paint it in. We're going to work on the left eye doing the exact same thing, starting with our black. There's a thick shadow on the top of the left eye that I'll outline, but very small shadow on the bottom. In fact, it leaves a little gap that we'll apply a light gray to in a bit. All right, so with our black, we'll fill in that left pupil. The face is slightly positioned up, and so I want those pupils to be looking up to the heavens. Now I'm also going to use this black to outline the right side along that nose on the left eye. I'll bring that all the way up, and I'll even slightly bring up that shadow on the top of the left eye too. Now we're still not done with this black nor this brush. We have some black on our ears. On the right ear, on the lower right, we have a little strip of black and a tiny little strip of black on the far left side of the left ear. All right, so now we're going to start working on the fur around the spots. We will be touching up our spots later, so you don't have to make this perfect around the spots, but try your best to be careful going in and around them. I'm going to start by using my size 2 filbert brush, and we're going to mix up the colors yellow ochre, white, and our fluorescent pink. That's yellow ochre, white, a good amount of white, and fluorescent pink. Now we're actually going to start with our medium value first. This is not going to be our darkest, and this is not going to be our light highlights that we add at the end. The reason I'm doing this is because when I'm not entirely sure about colors, maybe how dark or light I should make it, I start with that in-between color because we're going to have a range of mediums, we have a range of darks, and a range of lights in all portraits we make that are three-dimensional. And if you look at the main color here in this baby Jaguar, it's like a light tan, light brown color. And the area to the left around the neck, the lower left side of the neck, is really dark. And I didn't want to lose the spots there, and I know I needed to make it a dark value. So I had to think of a color that would help me join those tans and browns into a darker color there. So I thought of having a warmer theme, so using reds, oranges, pinks, browns for the majority of these dark and medium values. So that's why I started with the pinks. Then that would go with the reds that we see in burnt sienna. Burnt sienna is what I use for the dark shadow around the left side of the neck. I also pull in more darker pinks and some more tans. And then going lighter, I could just easily add in more yellow ochre and white that would still relatively look similar to the photo, but also consistent with where the light source is on the top of the head and more to the right. And you'll see how I tie in those darker areas around the snout and nose. I just make it a little bit more gray. I add in some blacks, I add in some burnt siennas, and still more of the yellow ochres, even some raw sienna. And that ties in all these colors together. So make sure you have enough of this color mixed up. We're going to be working all over the cat face, not even just in this stage, but later as well. And also, you might need to use a smaller brush up top to work in between those really small little spots. Now you'll notice as I work closer to the snout, I won't be painting all of the snout and nose with this color, but parts of it, and as well as the lower neck. On the left side of that neck I will, but right below the chin I won't be. I was just concerned I would lose parts of the definition around the snout and the neck, so I decided to keep those white. Oh yes, and the insides of the ears. Even the front of the right ear for now will not use this color. Now I should be working with a smaller brush up here because it's definitely a little tighter. And right here I'm going to be mixing up some more. I'm just mixing up the same color of yellow ochre and white. It wouldn't hurt to even go a little lighter on the top of the head. You can do that now if you want, or you can do that in later steps. It's kind of up to you. Do what you're comfortable with. You'll notice here I leave a white outline around the left side of the nose. Well, you don't have to do that. I actually end up filling that in later, same color, so you can just bring that down. But make sure you have enough of this color left because we'll keep building into it, and that's going to be raw sienna into it. This is the color that I'll use to fill in the nose and the white on the left and right sides of the snout. And I'll just pull that into parts of the yellow while also filling in the white. And now we can't forget about the left eye. Around the markings, I also add this color below the eye and above the left eye. Now I recommend you watch me here to see how I blend this into the yellow. So here I start with a really strong brown. I work around the markings very carefully, but I don't go in to pick up more paint. I blend that into the already wet light tan paint that's there. Now if yours is dried, you can just pull in more of that color into this color so you can blend it into this area. Blending is only possible when you're working with wet paint. So I'm just using these circular tiny motions, barely touching my canvas. I'm not pressing hard to just nicely blend those two colors together. Now I'm also going to do some blending on the top of the bridge of the nose. I really don't want to pull that medium brown up too high. And I'll do some blending as well as filling in some more white on the left side of the snout. But remember, I have that little thin white that I need to fill in with the light yellow tan. Now you'll notice throughout this tutorial, I like to build into previous colors. And into this color, I'm going to pull in burnt sienna and a little bit of black. And that's the color we'll use for the white left on the chin. Once again, I'll be blending that into the light tan, blending it, so you might need to pull a little bit more of our yellow ochre, white, and our pink into that. I'll also use this color as a shadow for the top lips. So right below, I'll just add a little touch of that on both the bottom of both top lips. And let's go ahead and add a little bit right below the nostrils, just a tiny bit right below the nostrils, not too far into that light tan. Alright, so I probably would recommend washing your brush out here. I didn't do that. I go straight into making black and white to create a medium gray. So not super dark, not bright light gray, right there in the middle. And we'll use this gray to fill in both ears But if you watch me, I'm going to start with the right ear. I'll work around the inside of the ear, not painting in the very center and the front of it. We'll use different colors for those areas. Now I'm loosely applying this to cover up the white that I want to get inside the ear, slightly cutting into the center white and into the tan on the outer edge of the right ear. Now the left ear will be a little different. There's no center that we're going to be painting with red. We're just going to fill in the entire left inside of the ear with this gray. And then I'll add a little bit more black on the top right of the left ear to blend a little bit of darkness on that edge. Alright, so let's wash out our brushes. We're going to mix up a light yellowish gray. That'll be lots of white, a little bit of yellow ochre, and tiniest bit of black. I'm even using some leftover of the gray that I was just using. And I'm adding this to the front of the right ear. My brush strokes are going the opposite direction now. A little bit more vertical, slightly at an angle. Alright, so let's wash out our brushes and work on the area below the neck in the darkest area. It's a little hard to see on my paint palette, but I'm using burnt sienna, a little bit of white, yellow ochre, and a little bit of black. I'm going to fill in all the rest of the white below the chin, around the neck, and now we'll start working around those rosettes. So not just around them, actually inside them too. To properly join our yellowish tan to this dark brown, I'll be mixing up yellow ochre and raw sienna. I'll also be adding this as a little shadow on the right ear, just a little shadow on the bottom, and as well as in between our yellowish tan and the gray, just on the top border. All right, let's wash out our brushes, and the last color we'll mix for part one, this tutorial, is our fluorescent pink, more this time with our yellow ochre and white. It's not going to be as light as the first yellowish tan that we mixed. This one has a little bit more pink in it. I'll join that yellowish tan to this medium brown And lastly, just a little bit to the right ear. And that wraps it up for part 1. If it's not already ready, part 2, head on over there. Otherwise, I'll be posting it next week. Alright creatives, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed yourself. I'll see you next week. And leave any comments down below if you have any questions. Bye!